Hi, it's Bumbleberry. Welcome back to another episode of Seduce Me 2. I think we just got the spirit out of us. So, we're live. We're here, Erik. My heart felt like singing 1,000 songs. This was all too amazing, and I was as joyful as could be. There was no hint of the spirit left within my body, and I could tell that everything was all right now. I was free to show Erik how much I loved him. And I don't think he's icky anymore. Erik wrapped his arms around me and buried his face in my neck, relieved as well.
I'm so happy.
Me too. I ignored the giggles and sighs around us. All I cared about was Erik in that moment. Diana, however, wasn't so subtle in wanting to interrupt our moment. Well, duh, she has a secret crush on us. Erik and I looked over at Diana, seeing her exhausted expression. From her eyes, I could tell that she had spent a lot of energy, and I was responsible for that.
Glad to see that it worked, and that you two are okay. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must rest.
Diana said nothing more as she turned to leave the room. I stopped her. Diana. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ah, we're besties again. With that, Diana and the other rebel leaders left the room, leaving the incubi and their wives with us.
Still, we should take some time to do some last-minute training and preparations before heading to bed. We leave first thing in the morning.
Everyone nodded in agreement. I, however, felt the events that had just occurred weigh me down, and I lowered my head. Alright, sorry, just the wording is awkward sometimes. I'll just head to the room if that's alright.
Huh? All right. I'll be there soon.
Dude, just come with me. I was just like possessed. Is no one concerned? I nodded and waved to the others before heading towards my room and making my way to the bed that called my name. I finally reached my room and let my body fall onto the bed. I let out a sigh of utter pleasure as I felt the cloud-like bed cradle my body on its surface. I was beyond happy. To think this insanity had started with a spirit haunting my body was mind-blowing. How is that even possible? No one would ever believe that, but it happened to me, of all people. Then I was kidnapped and taken to the demon world by the demon lord, trapped here unless he or I died. Another crazy, improbable event that managed to happen. This entire week had become a wild roller coaster ride of excitement that I never would have expected. Still, there was joy to be found in adventure, and my curiosity thanked destiny for letting me experience it. Now all I wanted to do was get home and marry the man I loved. As Erik finally entered the room at last... Finally and at last, my love has come along. He chuckled before sitting beside me and wrapping his arms around me.
Are you all right, princess?
Yeah, just tired. We held each other, locked in silence and unable to say anything more. We let the situation we had just gone through sink in, relieved that we were going to be happy from now on together. All we could do in the moment was hold each other and listen to our synchronized heartbeats. As the thought of tomorrow danced in my head, I began to grow fearful. Was I ready to go into battle? Was Erik? Or any of us, for that matter? We were about to walk into the final clash of a world war. Would we survive? Would I live to remain with Erik and feel his embrace again? Tomorrow brought too many questions to think about, and I became frustrated and scared. Obviously, you should make love to Erik. I'll put the little skip button again if you guys just want to go to sleep or whatever. I needed to hold him and treat the night like it was our last. Tomorrow was unpredictable, but tonight was guaranteed. Ooh! I ran my hands over his vest and looked up into Erik's eyes. See his meet mine in a loving gaze. He seemed to understand silently exactly what I wanted as he gently leaned in and kissed me. And this time, nobody creepy is watching us like a little child spirit who's like, no, you guys are gross. He looks so devoted. I do like Erik. He's very nice. My eyes naturally closed, feeling the warmth of his embrace completely engulf me and draw me into a state of peace and comfort. The world around us vanished as I became lost in his arms. My fingers danced over each button of his shirt and released them as our kiss slowly deepened, revealing his bare chest and letting me feel the heat of his skin beneath my fingertips. His touches were gentle, sweet over my own clothes. Mutual need between us was fluffy as a fairy tale. And with nothing to hold me back anymore, we would drift into a blissful euphoria into each other's arms before the battle for my freedom began. It's moments like this where I felt Erik's unwavering devotion to me. So, to make me feel pleasured, pampered, and all around blessed with his touches, his kiss, his breath against my skin. Still, his intricate hold on me only escalated as the clothes between us were tossed away, leaving us bare and leaving me in a wanton state of mind in his hands. Sorry. 50 Shades flashbacks. Anyway. Ahem. I was a perfect putty for him to meld, and every caress over my skin was paradise. My body drowned in ecstasy as his fingers massaged over my skin, his kisses over my shoulder shooting little jolts of pleasure through my spine as our voices drifted to soft sighs and moans. I was his princess, and he was going to serve me every bit of his love, hugging me to him from behind and ravishing me as if he knew exactly what I wished to feel. He was just that intuitive of my feelings. That part of him was one of the many reasons why I loved him. And he calls me princess. Even as his touches became more heated and his grip on me tightened, I could only release moans upon blissful cries within his love. My fingers became laced in one of his hands as the other explored every sweet spot on my body. The ride became a misty haze of pleasure, my fingers on my free hand burying into his copper hair as his hold over my waist guided our lovemaking. The grip we had on our entwined hands tightened with each pulse of pleasure that rushed through us. Our names became a repeatable chant, echoing through the room as the air became filled with heat and the bittersweet smell of sweat. Any other sound between us became carnal and wordless. We knew exactly what to do and how to drive each other to our joint pinnacle of pleasure. As we peeked over it, the loud cries we released became the sweetest thing I had ever heard, burying itself into my memory. The afterglow was just as perfect. Erik's arms around my waist and his loving kisses over my cheek and neck. I love you. I will always love you. Erik smiled and nuzzled me before pulling against his body, giving me his chest as a pillow to rest on. I gladly took it, nuzzling him and listening to the sound of this beautiful heartbeat pounding in his chest. His heartbeat pounded for me. I could hear the love beat in each pulse, and it made a smile dance over my skin. I became confident and filled with determination, ready for the day to follow. Tomorrow would decide everything. Oh, that's aggressive. All right, the day of the siege had finally dawned. We had arrived at the Demon Lord's castle. We were as ready as we could ever be. Many armies bearing different colors and banners washed over the grounds before the castle, ready to rush in and lay waste to the Demon Lord and the remainder of his forces. All of us shared a common enemy, and upon his demise we would all finally know some form of peace. Even during the roll call of the major generals, the air became full of determination and pride.
Mirth! Avarice! Nadia! Fiorna! Aradum!
Who are those people? Each name called became a mark on history. This was the war to bring freedom or destruction to the demon world. If the rebellion didn't win this fight, then this war would never end. If the rebellion won, then this world would become united and hopefully a peaceful rule would reign. The hour before the battle was set to take place, my thoughts instantly ran back to our final meeting in Lilith Castle. Diana had pulled the leaders and us together, instructing us on how exactly to proceed.
Zero, you will be joining Shadow and Sergeant in the front, taking care of the main army head-on. I expect that you will come out of it alive.
Yes, my lady.
Rabbit, Faye, you are in charge of range attacks and defense. We cannot allow any of those blasted imps getting to us from behind.
Don't want that.
Yes, ma'am!
As Diana looked to me, I grew slightly fearful. I had to get into the Demon Lord's castle, but how exactly did Diana plan on getting me there?
You and your fiancé will take the side route straight to the castle.
Yay! Wait, huh?
We've organized our army to have our strongest on the front lines and against the tree line, giving us a side route for you to make your way straight to the castle.
You're making his son kill
If
him?
anything trickles into the side route, you'll be able to handle it. However, there is something I must ask of you.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
If you are indeed attacked, you need to defend your fiancé the entire way there. Do not let him use his energy.
Okay.
Are you out of your mind?
When you get to the castle, I will be fighting one-on-one with the Demon Lord. If something should happen to me, then I need you to take over. She is not ready to fight him, and you need to be at full strength to finish him off.
Alright, this is a warning.
She's been taught well. Let her prove herself when the time comes.
I can do this. Sarah believes in me. I stared, listening and reaffirming the order. I couldn't lie, I was nervous. Yeah, just either Diana or Erik could die. Or the Demon Lord, which is, the number one priority of those outcomes. However, I was determined enough to see this through. I looked over at my fiancé with a confident smile. I got this. Don't worry. Despite the worried look in his eyes, he nodded and held my hand, trusting me in my decision to agree with Diana's command. Dana rolled her shoulders and looked at the map draped over the war table between us all. Her gaze pierced into the parchment as the aura around her body pulsated in anger.
I will fly ahead and meet the Demon Lord head on. No matter what happens, I will not allow that monster to live.
Okay. The pure determination and anger in her voice practically sent a shiver down my spine. She was set on seeing this through to the end, and I was sure that she was willing to die, even if it meant taking the Demon Lord with her. The remaining incubi and the wives were asked to stay behind the army and guard the main base, where Rabbit and Faye were stationed. They needed as many eyes as possible at the back of the battle, so the 4 couples were perfect to keep things in check. As they agreed, the meeting ended and the mental preparation had begun. The idea of the upcoming battle scared me, sending waves of fear and worry up and down my body in response to the thought.
So, my warrior princess,
Yeah.
are you ready?
I am, of course, ready. That was a Xena warrior princess war cry, in case you were not aware. I want to say yes, but I'm scared. Erik gave me a comforting smile and gently leaned down and kissed my cheek, wrapping his arms around me softly.
I promise. I will protect you from anything that comes our way.
Way to go, Erik. You're such a gentleman. I listened to him speak before nodding and taking in a deep breath. Everything would be okay. We would be fine. I had to believe in myself and get us to the castle when the time was right. Oh, geez. Like a beacon, our forces became the banner of hope and strength for the rebellion. At the sight of Diana, many soldiers bowed or stared in awe and inspiration. Maybe it was her presence, or maybe it was for what she stood for. But as Diana stood at the cliffside of the mountain, the air became full of energy and power. My fiancé, Rabbit, Faye, and I stood behind her as Diana stood up on the ledge of the cliffside, addressing the rebellion for their final battle. Her voice echoed across the field, booming and reverberating through the air like thunder. I like this background, by the way. Hachow! Diana taking over the world.
Milites! Et hoc liberati esturei tramcun tuis omnibus conversiris! Sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem! Nocte! Lavabir mur! Arcem! Hostium sanguine!
Yeah, I only speak a little bit of Latin, so all I know is here is where the liberation of some Earth is, or like world is usually Terra. With this all, I don't know what conversers, so like, let's all get together to free us. Okay, whatever, it's fine. Oh, now I'm gonna ask, what is she saying?
She said that she will help them gain their freedom, and she will stand with them as they fight this war.
Is that all?
Well, she also said that the castle will be bathed in blood, but I don't believe she means it literally.
Thank you, Erik. I nodded as I stared at the back of Diana's head. A part of me felt a little intimidated and jealous of the power she had. She could really make armies bow to her and obey her every whim. At the same time, she knew that she was doing the right thing for this world.
Ele Dio dominati sunt nostri, nos destruet, ium mitere, profundissimum, inferni detractos.
Rabbit and Faye stepped forward and held their hands out towards the castle, focusing their energies and forcing the stone walls around to crumble and dissolve down into the earth. Dana summoned her saber, letting it shine brilliantly as the purple taint over her skin began to twist and turn. Before my eyes, the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of her skin, morphing into a set of demonic wings. Holy schmoly! I could only stare, jaw dropped, as Diana's body lifted off the ground and began to fly over the legions, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
Diana can fly! At her final command, Diana's wings pulsated in the air, flapping gracefully as she swooped down and forward. She was charging and flying for the castle walls, saber bared and ready to spill blood. As the armies below began to bellow and march forward, Rabbit took a hold of my shoulder and turned me away from the castle to face her.
Come, we must hurry.
Oh my gosh, Demon Erik is back! And I can actually see his full body now. Interesting, interesting. Understanding the need for urgency, I nodded and rushed forward with the rest of the incubi towards the slope down to the mountainside.
Everything is in order. Sergeant Diana's guard are at the front lines, while Shadow is with his legion to the west.
Is our route clear?
We've done what we can to keep your way clear. We'll try to make sure the battle won't break through the path.
I nodded, feeling the need to rush to nip at my heels, pushing me forward. My fiancé seemed to agree, gripping my hand and walking at my pace alongside me. However, as we finally arrived at the forest line, Faye and Rabbit stopped, looking back at us.
Straight through here. The sound of the war will always be on your right, so do not get lost.
You'll be fine, though. Just follow the tree line.
Sounds good. In sync, my fiancé and I nodded in acknowledgement before turning to see the other brothers and their wives. quick question. I just realized she's saying, like, don't let him use his energy. Since I'm his fiance, couldn't we just, like, make out right before we go into the final battle and he would be, like, back to snuff? I mean, I don't know if there's time for quickies in the middle of a war, but, like, he can replenish his energy. So this is it.
Remember your surroundings and protect each other.
Be careful, alright? Make sure you stay safe.
Kick his dead body a couple times for me, alright? Right in the head.
Thank you, Sam.
We'll be right here rooting for you and watching your back, okay?
We'll finish this and rush in as soon as we can, alright?
Make sure you kick some serious ass. Show that old goat what he gets for messing with you.
We'll win this. We know we can.
Everyone's volume is different.
You can do this.
It's kind of bothering me.
We'll see you soon, okay?
Alright, I smiled despite the nerves running through my body. I held onto my fiance's hand and gave it a hard squeeze before receiving one back in kind. We'll finish this, then we'll go home and we'll get married and have demon babies, and it'll be so great. The group nodded before I slowly turned and looked to the tree line, took a breath, and rushed forward. Matching my speed, my love followed, weaving through the trees behind me to not lose sight of me. The journey was surprisingly fast going through the trees. The sound of the war crashed behind us outside of the tree line, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume, but I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. Before I could, however, I skidded to a stop, seeing imps appear from the distance and rush towards us. As my incubus came up behind me and spotted the imps, he prepared himself to attack, but I placed my hand on his arm, stopping him. I got this. Why is she saying that? That's so not Mika, but it's not like she has a ton of personality, so it's okay. I walked forward and formed my weapon, letting it shine brightly in the darkness of the forest around us, and temporarily blinding the imps ahead of us. Aren't you glad I said surprise me? Now I have like a magical glow stick of doom. My hands formed the katars I had trained with, feeling their weight in my hands as the blade glimmered a lavender glow of energy. I swung my hands a bit, recalling the reach and balance of the weapons in my hands as I prepared to attack. The imps, who were blinded by my light for only a moment, looked back at me and stared as they took note of the weapon I had possessed. With a battle cry, I rushed forward, taking advantage of their blank state. Grah! I arched my body to the side and jabbed forward, running my blade through the face of an imp before slicing through it and spinning around to slash through the imp beside him, opening up 2 large gashes in his chest through his ribs and lungs. Oh, that's the noise I was supposed to make. The imps fell as the others became shell-shocked at the sight. Must have been a big surprise to see a human cut down 2 of their number, but I wasn't in the mood to let them recover. My body quickly turned in front of another imp as I swung my weapon once again, slicing open his throat. With a bubbly cry, he fell as well as I rushed forward again towards the castle, uncaring. I hope Erik is behind me. The remaining imps began to quake and step back in fear, most likely never expecting to see a human decimate their companions. I wasn't so friendly and merciful, especially in this war, as I lunged forward again and skewered through another imp, hearing the steel of my weapon break through his body. My incubus, despite probably being surprised at my carnage, I'm probably like coated in blood and just like, yes, Erik, I will take care of this, followed as I continued forward, fighting through every imp that came our way. I had lost count of how many crossed me, but I didn't care. All I cared about was getting to the castle. By the time we reached the end of the forest, there were a slew of dead bodies behind me. I stood at the tree line panting and feeling waves of adrenaline and lack of energy run through my veins. This is like a really pretty castle. You know what it kind of reminds me of, though? Labyrinth. Like, not the little torch things, but everything else. I panted for air, slowly focusing on calming down as my energy quickly depleted from its adrenaline-filled high. The weapon in my hand quickly vanished, no longer able to maintain its form without my energy. That was all I could do before my energy was expended and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. I began to fall forward, exhausted. My fiancé, however, quickly rushed forward and caught me in his arms.
Whoa! Princess, are you okay?
Of course I am, my snuggle-uphagus. Huh? I looked up to see Erik staring down at me with a deeply concerned gaze. We were safe for the moment, so I merely smiled up at him with a nod. I'm fine. I promise to protect you, like you protect me. He let out a small laugh, kissing my forehead and hugging me to him. He does not sound like that when he laughs, but I was giggling. Look at how precious my little demon is. I just want to scratch his little face. All right.
You spoil me so much, my love.
I hugged him back, feeling relief that we had finally arrived at the castle we were about to rush inside. As we slowly pulled away, Erik lifted me up and helped me to my feet.
Will you be all right?
Of course I will. I'm pretty cool. I nodded, shaking off the exhaustion from my mind. I was ready to end this. I looked up at the castle gates and felt a rush of determination fill through me. Let's go finish this. With that, Erik and I rushed forward into the castle. The final battle had begun. Erik and I rushed into the castle and into the main hall, where we could hear Diana and the Demon Lord clashing swords.
I will tear you to shreds!
Okay, Diana. Ooh. As we entered the space where the battle was happening, we stopped at the doorway, spotting Diana slamming her saber over and over onto the Demon Lord's sword, which he held over his head like a shield. I don't remember if he looked that way. I mean, he looked that way when we had the fake summon, but whatever. From the look of it, the Demon Lord was severely wounded and was trying to hold out against Diana's barrage of blows. Diana wasn't looking too well herself, but she seemed to have the upper hand. What was scary was that Diana's face was completely smeared with blood, intensifying the frightened look of rage and anger in her eyes. Every swing was reckless, powerfully thrown to eventually hack into the Demon Lord. To her displeasure, the Demon Lord was able to block each time. Erik and I slowly stepped in, watching as Diana continued to beat steel to steel in an angry rage, trying to find an opening and becoming more enraged with each block the Demon Lord pulled. Slowly, his body began to glow, pulsing with red energy. What? No. No. Diana, you need to keep cool, girl. We need to take down the Demon Lord. No. With a blast of red lightning, Diana was sent flying back, slamming against a pillar and falling to the ground with a thud. Diana! The Demon Lord seemed to ignore my shout as he stood up and began to walk over towards Diana's fallen body. Erik, go help her! I will help too! Diana tried to press up onto her hands, stumbling and buckling a bit before she glared up at the Demon Lord while he approached.
I should have waited until you came back, so I could have killed all of you in one fell swoop!
Rude! Ooh, Diana's intense now. She had black and purple flames engulf her body from the rage that ignited within her. Holy smokes, that is seriousness.
You bastard!
Get him! Pouncing off the ground, Diana formed a new saber in her hand and flew at the Demon Lord, swinging it to slice his throat open. However, the Demon Lord parried, locking steel once more with her and leaning in with a hard glare of his own.
How does it feel to be the only one left alive in your family? Not even your unborn sister survived!
Okay, so it is Diana's sister, right? The spirit? Diana snarled as she slammed her feet into the Demon Lord's chest, forcing him back and causing her to catch herself on her wings, remaining in the air. The voice that erupted from Diana's mouth sent shivers down my spine.
You don't even deserve the mercy of death!
Erik instinctively placed an arm in front of me, staying put and watching intently. Both of us were sure that Diana possibly had this, but we didn't want to get in the way of her rage if she was going full-out berserk. The Demon Lord let out a laugh before pointing his hand at Diana, summoning a large bolt of red lightning to shoot out and slam into her. Luckily, Diana had placed her sword between them and blocked the lightning from hitting her skin. Still, she was slammed back into the pillar she hit before and held there against a stream of heavy red lightning.
You're losing your power, succubus! Just like your weak parents!
Erik, want to step in? Huh? Do you want me to step in? With a tearful scream, Diana began to push back, shaking and gritting her teeth. The wounds on her body began to bleed profusely, but she eventually set up a wave of purple flame-like energy into her sword and letting it climb up into the lightning bolt into the Demon Lord's hand. The Demon Lord quickly pulled his hand away, revealing a sizzling and burning aura around his palm and fingers. Diana, weakened, fell to her knees, exhausted but not out yet, her eyes still bore into her enemy, not ready to give up. Erik! You look so mystical. I love it. He began to summon his ethereal tendrils. Dude, Erik, you are so cool and fancy. And naked, but that's okay. I felt myself glare hard at the Demon Lord. He was a monster that needed to be stopped. Erik, feeling my anger, stepped forward and began to summon his ethereal tendrils from behind his back and around his form.
Guess it's time to step in.
Heck yeah, let's do this. I watched as Erik rushed forward and planted his feet beside Diana, reeling his hands back and punching them forward. As he did, a crown of tendrils shot up from the ground around his body and flew at the Demon Lord like a spray of arrows. The Demon Lord glared and sliced each attack out of the way, panting from exhaustion but not ready to surrender. As he sliced through the last one, he sneered at his second son, gritting his teeth.
You!
Erik smirked, licking his lips slightly.
Did you miss me, father?
As he finished his sentence, Erik formed another round of spikes behind him and shot them towards his father, glaring as he blocked and knocked away each one again with his sword. The Demon Lord let out a chuckle.
Like I would miss little insect traitors like you.
The Demon Lord let out a howl before slamming his giant sword into the floor, causing the ground to quake and a large crack to cut through the marble and charge at Erik's position? Are you kidding me? Erik jumped into the air and landed beside the broken earth, sending out another volley of spikes. Luckily, one rammed into the Demon Lord's shoulder, causing him to shout out in pain.
Losing your touch, aren't you?
The Demon Lord snarled before ripping the spike out of his body, letting the wound bleed openly before rushing at his son with the sword held high. However, Diana swooped in and slammed her saber onto the path of his sword, forming a deadlock.
I'm not finished with you!
Holy smokes. Diana and the Demon Lord pushed against each other, eventually jumping away from each other in aggravation. As Diana landed beside Erik, he stepped in and pointed his hands to the ground, where his tendrils burrowed through the marble and jutted out like a spike trap. The Demon Lord was quick to react, rushing back before the spikes impaled him from below and glared. This match had become an unfair fight for him, but in our case, it was needed to finish him off at last.
Just as cocky as your mother! No wonder she was my least favorite.
Rude! Erik suddenly grew a dark face, the tendrils in his body glowing in a red, misty aura. Something snapped in Erik's emotions, and the Demon Lord had triggered it.
Don't worry. I'll send you to a place where you'll never have to see her again.
Heck yeah, Erik. You show him who's boss. Erik and the Demon Lord then simultaneously rushed forward at each other, with the Demon Lord raising his sword high, and Erik moving his tendrils to wrap around his blade. Erik and the Demon Lord went into a deadlock, with the Demon Lord trying to cut through the hold his tendrils had on his sword. Erik, however, formed more free tendrils and shot them up at the Demon Lord from below, causing his father to release his sword and jump back, now unarmed. Erik smirked as his tendrils snapped the sword in half with insane ease and tossed the two halves to the side to be forgotten. The sword is down. His blocking power is halved. Or zeroed. Whatever. I don't know. I watched in anxiousness, hoping the battle would end soon. It was 2 against 1. The Demon Lord wasn't going to win. I, however, kept my distance to make sure he wouldn't attack me instead. I had no energy to fight. Taking in what Erik had done to his weapon, the Demon Lord snarled.
I can beat you even without my sword! Remember who raised you, boy!
No. Erik let out a large bark of a laugh as his tendrils sharpened into spikes once again.
I'm afraid you're mistaken. My mother raised me. You were too busy doting on your favorite son to care about me or the others.
James, you mean? The Demon Lord growled, his fist becoming engulfed in red bolts of lightning.
I created you! You owe your very existence to me!
I owe you nothing!
The Demon Lord only laughed before suddenly gasping from pain. I had barely seen what happened, but as I stared at the Demon Lord, I gasped at the sight. Protruding from the Demon Lord's chest were a spray of red spikes dripping with his blood. Erik, you did it? I could barely keep staring as he turned around and looked at us in shock. I looked over to Erik to see him pointing at the wall behind the Demon Lord, where a collection of spikes jutted through a black void into the demon's back, effectively skewering him.
You never paid attention. You were blinded by pride, and that will be your downfall.
No! He's mine!
Erik quickly pulled back his tendrils from his father's body, causing the Demon Lord to fall forward from pain and momentum. Diana, however, swooped at the Demon Lord and rammed her saber into his chest, a garbled gasp escaping his throat. You know, you always gotta make sure to double tap, so you ought to behead him? I don't know. Anyway, without hesitating, Diana pulled her sword out and stabbed him once again, driving her blade all the way out through him to the hilt and snarling into his face.
Those were for my parents.
A third stab directly through the heart.
For my sister!
Diana finally pulled her sword out and rabbed the pommel into the side of his head, pushing him down to the ground in a lifeless thud. He was dead by now, eyes glazed over in death's cold, breathless embrace. However, Diana didn't care. Diana quickly straddled his waist, bringing up her saber and using her magic to shorten the dagger into her hands above her head.
And for every life you took from this world!
Men, Diana began to violently slam and pepper stabs into the Demon Lord's chest. Erik rushed over and wrapped his arms around me, covering me from the sight, but he was unable to block the sound of Diana's sob-filled screams with each stab. I became a bit frightened at Diana and how she was releasing her anger. However, it was entirely justified. He had taken everything from her and had caused worldwide chaos. It was only natural to demand revenge even after death. This was her last stand with him, and she had dominated his very corpse with her blade, uncaring if the lost spirit no longer was within it. It went on far too long, to the point where Erik had to let me go and walked forward, pulling Diana off of him. She began to flail, dropping her knife and letting it fade as it hit the ground into nothing.
No! Let go!
Diana!
Erik pulled Diana to her feet and gripped her shoulders, shaking her and glaring into her eyes.
Enough!
Diana's eyes were bloodshot, desperate to keep striking the dead body, but filled with emotion and broken inhibition. As she finally took in Erik's words, she shut her eyes and dropped to her knees, releasing a wave of sobs and cries. I walked over to Erik's side, pitying Diana. She must have seen so much death. This was her solace and chance to let it go. I know her family was gone because of him. But I knew that it was finally over. They were avenged, and so were the many people who died under his hand. The Demon Lord was dead at last. I felt a weight lift off of my heart and spirit, proving to me that the curse was broken and that the chain that bound me to the abyssal plains was gone. I could go home. I hugged Erik's arm to me, finally letting out the sigh I was holding in relief of the situation. Erik smiled and kissed my head.
It's over now.
Yeah, we can go home now. Hey Diana, how do you feel about being maid of honor? A wave of joy rushed through my body, happy to know I was free to go home. I began to become overjoyed with the idea of returning, walking across the aisle and marrying Erik before returning to my normal life. Life in the demon world was an adventure, but it was time to finish this and leave. I smiled to Erik before kneeling down and placing a hand on Diana's shoulder as she cried, causing her to look up at me. I could only smile at her, try to relieve some of the heartache and burden she was releasing. It's over, Diana. We won. A small breath of silence ran through the air before Diana wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded, still shaky from the experience.
It's over.
I nodded and gently helped Diana stand before taking Erik's hand and walking towards the entrance of the hall. Diana, however, turned back to look at the Demon Lord's body, stopping us in our tracks.
Was this all worth it? I lost my family because of him. There was so much bloodshed.
Diana tightened a fist at her side, gritting her teeth and shutting her eyes.
I didn't get to say goodbye to my family. My sister.
You can hang out with her. I think we still have her spirit trapped somewhere. I felt another wave of empathy run through my body at her words. She wasn't really alone, though. She had Sero. He was truly everything she had left in the world, and he was more than willing to walk through it with her. It was all right, so I reached out to take her shoulder. Diana looked over, seeing the comfort in my eyes despite her broken gaze. Before I could speak, however, a familiar purple light glowed from the Demon Lord's body. What? Catching our eyes and causing us all to look over in shock. What was happening? Is her little sister possessing him? What the... Alright, we'll have to save all future possessions for the next episode. But I hope you all stay sweet, and I'm going to go play ahead because now I'm really curious. And so I'll see you all on the next episode of Seduce Me 2, The Demon Wars. Stay sweet and have a great day. Bye!